Greetings and good evening to one and all. On behalf of my team AP Legal Chambers and on my personal behalf, I welcome you all for the webinar, today's webinar. I am Anand Kumar. I am going to be your host and the moderator for today's session. We are happy to team up with Bharatiya Nyaya Shastra, founded by Arvind Kumar, an organization started by the final year law students for the benefit of law students. The title of today's webinar is Supreme Court of India, Uniformity and Accessibility, a Judicial Impact Assessment by our special speaker, Advocate Vasanta Kumar, Supreme Court of India. I welcome all our participants, and before going into the webinar, I would like to make a few things clear. Kindly mute the audios from your end and if possible, disable the videos too. The session is a completely moderated session, and once the presentation of our special speaker gets over, the APLC's APLC segment and the question answer segment would follow. If you have any questions to ask our special speaker, you can leave them in the chat box, and if time permits, all your questions will be answered by him. A short info about the organizers of the event. We are Team AP Legal Chambers, a new age law firm in Delhi NCR with a branch office in Chennai. We started this journey in the year 2017, and since then, we are trying to resolve the legal issues of our clients to the best of our abilities. APLC has been providing specialized services in the areas of domestic and international taxation, constitutional laws, IPR, energy law, commercial advisory, arbitration, and corporate compliances. We started organizing these webinars out of our passion for law, and due to the tremendous response from the participants, we are hosting the webinars on every Thursdays and Sundays. As always, once the speaker's presentation gets over, we shall be having the segment called APLC's APLC, Ask the Popular Learned Counsel. We have prepared a few questions from your end, and we would be asking them to the speaker. I am sure it will be both interesting and informative. So coming to this topic, the Supreme Court of India, Uniformity and Accessibility, the Judicial Impact Assessment. Uniformity and accessibility are two very important aspects for getting a fair justice. A person who is approaching the court of law should have and ought to get accessibility to the court. At the same time, he should be treated on par with all the people, the haves and the have-nots. I am not sure about what is in the store for today's webinar, but I am eagerly awaiting to listen from our special speaker. I am sure this is going to be a refreshing topic, a topic which has not been touched by many people. There have been so many technical sessions that are happening during this lockdown, but this session is going to be a different one. Let me introduce our special speaker for today, Mr. Vasanta Kumar. His friends and fellow advocates say he is the pride of Pondicherry. Advocate V. Vasanta Kumar is having about 15 years of hands-on experience in the legal profession, a prominent face in the Honorable Supreme Court of India and Madras High Court. He was associated with great stalwarts, namely Mr. K.K. Venugopal, Senior Advocate and Attorney General of India, late T.R. Antyarjuna, Senior Advocate, former AG of Maharashtra and ASG for India. He has on various occasions filed several writ petitions touching upon the lives of common men, advocates and well-being of the judiciary. He filed a writ petition challenging the constitutional validity of Indian Evidence Act. He also filed a writ petition for establishment of National Court of Appeal at Chennai, Mumbai, Kolkata and New Delhi. The said matter is referred to the Constitutional Bench and is reported in 2016 SSC 686. The judgment is quoted by Supreme Court in the Civil Appeal number 3455 of 2010 entitled Gujarat Urja Vikas Nigam Limited versus SR Power Limited as reported in 2016. He also filed a writ petition for increasing the retirement age of judges of constitutional courts, as reported in 2013. Installing video conferencing facilities at Madras High Court, as reported in 2015. This judgment is quoted by Supreme Court in an SLP entitled Mallika vs. State of Tamil Nadu. He also filed a writ petition for regulating the rules for the appointment of law officers, as reported in 2018. Our special speaker also filed a writ petition challenging the constitutional validity of GST. The Honorable Division Bench allowed the writ petition. Our special speaker also filed a writ petition challenging the constitutional validity of Binami Transaction Act. The Honorable First Bench was pleased to issue notice to the Union of India as well as to the Attorney General of India. The matter is scheduled for hearing on the 5th of August. Our special speaker is also the Standing Counsel of the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University. We are very grateful to have you on board, sir. Whatever few things which I have mentioned about you are just a sample, but I am sure all the participants would be knowing about you. We are very grateful and also very glad to have you on board, sir. We are waiting for your presentation, and I am sure this is going to be very interesting and informative. Thank you, sir. We welcome you on board on behalf of APLC, and over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anand and his teams. Thank you very much for the organizers for giving this opportunity. And I am grateful to my friend Mr. Ram Shankar, who is instrumental in coordinating this webinar. The topic which I was chosen for discussion, and I would like to share my thoughts only on that aspect. Concerning my professional experience for the past 15 years in the High Court and 10 years in Supreme Court, and my practical experience which I faced while I was approaching the Supreme Court for order or for several matters. The topic which is scheduled for discussion is for Supreme Court of India, uniformity and accessibility, judicial impact assessment. First, I would like to tell a small background about the Supreme Court of India before going to the topic. Supreme Court of India is all, I'm not going to explain what is Supreme Court of India, what is its jurisdiction. I only say that the Supreme Court of India is an apex court which is founded for the purpose of interpreting the question of national importance and constitutional validity of laws. That was the original thought process of the constitutional framers. But unfortunately, today, those who are in practice Supreme Court and many of the lawyers will be knowing what is the function of Supreme Court. Day in, day out, all the SLPs being entrained by Supreme Court, where there for a simple mandamus between the two individuals, where it does not have any question of law emanated to be decided by the apex court of the country. Therefore, I thought this topic should be in surface. I coined this topic to kindle the thoughts of every legal fraternity as to how to restore the stature of the Supreme Court as enshrined by the framers of the Constitution. For that, I would like to take our respected members to the limited background of the constitutional history of the Supreme Court. For that, I would invite your kind attention to Indian High Courts Act 1861. May I request the organizer to kindly share the first slide. Respected members, I would like to invite your attention to the structural hierarchy of the courts before independence. You could see there were high courts constituted under by the virtue of the charters of the Queen. Indian High Courts Act empowered to constitute the high courts. Thereafter, before 1937, all the appeals from the high courts as filed before the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, which was at London. So, the Judicial Committee is part of the Privy Council. Privy Council is generally advisory body of the Queen, with regard to all aspects. Judicial Committee is the judicial wing of the Privy Council to entertain all the appeals emanating from the British Dominion. As all who are aware of the history of our independence of this country, our country were ruled by the British for 200 years. And the famous ruler of the British says that there is no sunset and sunrise in India. Because almost all the geographical part of the world has been dominated by the British. Therefore, Judicial Committee find it very difficult to entertain all the appeals from the various high courts under its dominion. Therefore, to contain the frivolous appeals from various countries, especially from India, it was contemplated to establish Federal Court of India. The Federal Court of India was established in 1937, which is the predecessor of the Supreme Court. The constitution organization of the Federal Court of India is in pari materia with the present Supreme Court, which was entertaining all the appeals from the high courts. Namely, the presidency high courts were either Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta, and later on Allahabad and Patna High Court was established by the British. These no courts were functioning until the constitution came into force. Second slide on. This is a slide demonstrating the reasons for the cause of establishment of the Federal Court, which was the intermediary court between the high courts in India and the Privy Council. And you see the first reason, the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council was not a tribunal or a court, but merely an advisory body constituted for and intended to advise the king in his capacity as the highest tribunal of his dominions. Second reason you see, since Canada, Australia, and South Africa has such tribunal, there was no reason whatsoever why we should not have a Supreme Court for our own country. The third reason, the expense of an appeal to the Privy Council is prohibitive. The next reason, the distance from India to the Privy Council resulted in unnecessary delay, for example, 4 to 5 years. And the last reason, the Privy Council refused to hear any criminal appeal unless there had been a gross failure of justice in the Indian High Court. So these are the reasons which was background for establishment of the Federal Court, which I believe that still exists, because after Federal Court of India, after Supreme Court was established, people's filed appeals in the Federal Court. Still, if there is any question of law, the matter would be entered in the Privy Council, provided the Federal Court grants leave. So this comes after this slide pertains to the court structure after independence. The structure of the courts after independence. To be aware, the Constitution of India, by virtue of Article 124 of the Constitution, the Supreme Court was established. The Supreme Court observed the jurisdiction of the Federal Court. What was contemplated under Section 200 of the Government of India Act 1935 has been in pari materia adopted by the Legislative Assembly insofar as Constitution is concerned, and is renumbered as Article 124 of the Constitution. To know little background of the Supreme Court, I would say only the legal history and constitution of the committee. In 1928, Nehru Committee reported that there should be a Supreme Court of India. That was under 1919 Act. And thereafter, a special committee was formed and considered and a report on the constitutional organization of the Supreme Court. That committee was composed of A.S. Varadacharya. He was a lawyer at Madras, thereafter Madras High Court judge, Federal Court and Supreme Court. He had the distinction of being the judge of the 3 forums of our country, namely Madras High Court, Federal Court, and thereafter Supreme Court also. And Alladi Krishnaswamy Iyer, he was Advocate General of the Madras Presidency for a very long time period. And B.L. Mitter is from Bengal Providence. And K.M. Munshi, all of them are Advocate of distinction. And B.N. Rao was the constitutional advisor. He was also part of the committee. So this is how the committee was formed to examine about the constitution of the Supreme Court. May I see next slide? So this committee submitted a report. The report was based mainly on the provisions of the Government of India. As I was already said, that the Supreme Court has observed jurisdiction of the Federal Court. Therefore, Section 200 of the Government of India Act was verbatim reproduced by 124 of the Constitution. And you see the recommendation of the committee is fascinating how the constitutional framers has foreseen the Supreme Court should function. The Supreme Court was a final and appellate jurisdictional question relating to the constitutionality of laws. The committee further suggested that Supreme Court, like the Federal Court of India and 1935 Act, would be the best available forum for the adjudication of all disputes between the union and a unit, and between one unit and one, and the proposal that the court should have a exclusive original jurisdiction in such dispute. That is Article 131. This recommendation has been reframed as Article 131, original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. And the next recommendation, the appellate authority of the Privy Council would disappear with the new constitution, The committee a similar jurisdiction has been conferred on Supreme Court. Therefore, Privy Council was jurisdiction was conferred on the Supreme Court. May I request the next slide. This assumes significance insofar as today's topic is concerned. Organization of Supreme Court, uniformity. I put the exclamation mark. Whether the Supreme Court, its present function, is set to the standard of the recommendation of the committee. You see, the first recommendation is that there should be at least 2 division benches consisting of 5 judges. And thereafter, the constitutional advisor, Mr. B.N. Rao, to take the opinion of the various eminent persons from across the globe, has visited to US, Canada, and Ireland, and discussed with some eminent persons. He was advised by Justice Philip Frankfurt of the US Supreme Court, and I have extracted the opinion rendered by the Justice Philip Frankfurt, which I have extracted. I would read. He was of the opinion that the jurisdiction of the exercisable by the Supreme Court should be exercised by the full court. The full court. Please note this sentence. The jurisdiction exercisable by the Supreme Court should be exercised by the full court. There is no question of division. Division bench of 5 days was recommended, but Philip Frankfurt advised to have the Supreme Court to sit on full. That is en banc. That is the system followed in the US Supreme Court. The highest court of appeal on the land should not sit in divisions. If it did, there would be a danger that a division might be distinguishing between the decision of the other divisions in a way familiar to the lawyers, make law uncertain. If the work before the Supreme Court to be excessive, the best way of correcting the situation would be not by empowering the court to sit in division, but by reducing the number of appeals as of right. So therefore, today Supreme Court sits in 15 division benches. Now the present strength of the Supreme Court is 34. And one would, if one could visit to Supreme Court on Monday or Friday, that is the Miscellaneous Day, and all SLPs are being listed for admission. Your matter is listed as 10th item. You can't go to Supreme Court saying that our matter is 10th item. It will reach within 5 minutes, 10:45. They will take the paper book, they will dismiss. So why I'm saying is that the Supreme Court has got the order's duty, as Justice Subbarao said that Supreme Court, being a scintilla on the coin has got the constitutional obligation to wipe every tears from the every eye. Therefore, as a matter of right, the citizens can approach the Supreme Court. That is the inalienable right conferred by the Constitution. But as an institution, I'm saying, as an institution, there is a responsibility casted by the Constitution that Supreme Court, being the highest judicial forum of the country, should interfere only with regard to the question of law and the constitutional importance. That was the intention of the members of the Constitution. And if today, if you see all this, if you see in this background of the slide, if you visualize the function of the Supreme Court, there is absolutely, there is uniformity in decision. For example, for 2 examples I will quote. In so service matters concerned, before Umadevi judgment, all will be knowing, I understand. There were several judicial benches saying that irregular appointment, illegal appointment, then court issued directions, then they were regularized, then they will be terminated. Once Umadevi came, there was a one-time settlement saying that in view of paragraph 54, as a one-time measure, all will be regularized. And again, there is a dilution. Therefore, the Supreme Court, the view of the Supreme Court should be like it should be strong and it should not be often deviating from other views. So for this purpose, the slide is to throw light to the respective members as to what was the idea of the premise of the Constitution. So in my respectful opinion, as said, the Supreme Court does not function uniform. Every judge, every bench will think differently. The same set of facts, different lawyer, different bench, there will be different view of Supreme Court. Then there will be a reference to a 3-judge bench. And 3-judge bench will refer matter to the 5-judge bench. So this is how there are cleavage of opinion. So this can be obliterated only by having a Supreme Court which is in uniform in nature. So may I request the next slide. This is accessibility. In the background of the present COVID period, this term accessibility does not have any significance for the reason that Supreme Court, we can append the Supreme Court right from our table through video conferencing. Because of this measure, the Supreme Court to conduct the hearings through video conferencing. I believe and hope that this situation should not stay long. I am saying about the COVID, but this video conference should continue only for us admission to SLPs. So therefore, in this background, I would invite the members to the attention Article 130 of the Constitution, which says the seat of the Supreme Court, that gives powers to the Chief Justice to constitute bench, Supreme Court bench, anywhere other than Delhi with the approval of the President. So this was the original article. And before that, the discussion came into debate for the Constitutional Assembly. The draft articles are 108 and 108 capital A. So these two draft articles pertains to two articles of the present Constitution, namely 129 and 130. 129 speaks with the seat of the Supreme Court of Delhi, and Supreme Court has got the power to punish of the contempt itself. So when that article came for a discussion, there was a hue and cry among the members of the Legislative Assembly saying that insofar as capital of the country is concerned, there is no mention anywhere, even for you take parliament debates, there is no mention in the debates saying that Delhi should be the capital, therefore parliament should be situated in Delhi. So somehow parliament came in to establish at Delhi. See, previously Calcutta was the capital. Thereafter it was shifted to Delhi. So there are many discussions with regard to seat of the Supreme. Why that Delhi should find place? How Delhi is accessible to the people? Because Delhi is not so much important historical place. See, in fact, there was a talk in debate saying that Nagpur is the central part of the country. If you take the Jewish stationery, Nagpur is a central place. 1,000 kilometers equidistance from Madras, Calcutta, Bombay, and Delhi. So Nagpur was preferred to be the central point of the country. Therefore, it was advocated to establish Supreme Court at Nagpur. But however, that is not find favor with the members. Therefore, one gentleman from United Province, Sri Jaspat Rai Kapoor, sought the clarification of Dr. Ambedkar. The question runs like this, which I reproduce in the slide. The debate took place on 27/9/1949, where he seeks, may I seek a small clarification by Dr. Ambedkar, will it be open to the Supreme Court, so long as it is sitting in Delhi, to have a circuit anywhere else in the country simultaneously? The answer given by the architect of the Constitution, Mr. Ambedkar, yes, certainly the court is only a bench. Therefore, there is always a thought process to have a bench at other than Delhi. For example, Chennai, if you take Madras High Court has got 2 benches, Madurai. Bombay, there are 4 benches, Nagpur, Aurangabad, Bombay, and Goa. Likewise, Allahabad. There are several other high courts, Madhya Pradesh, Gwalior. Therefore, this was the thought process of the framers of the Constitution. They are left to the wisdom of the Parliament and the Chief Justice to decide about the bench of the Supreme Court. So, in so far as accessibility is concerned, whether the Supreme Court is accessible to the common man, whether I am getting justice, that is immaterial. Whether I can think of approaching the Supreme Court for like advocate record fees, engaging a senior, if I conduct a case here, a plate is drafted, cross-examination is done by me, I will be in a better position to argue the case by the Supreme Court. But if I will have to travel to Delhi, for example, from Chennai to Delhi, is it affordable to go to Supreme Court to there, and I will have to seek for assistance from advocate and record, because that is the practice. So whether a client can client who is having a small purse, whether he is affordable to approach the Supreme Court, that is the larger question which will have to be decided. Anyway, that is up to the wisdom of the Chief Justice and the Parliament to decide with regard to the bench. So this is the aspect with regard to accessibility. In my respectful opinion, Supreme Court does not have any access to the have-nots, and still people approach the Supreme Court who have only long purse and who are privileged in society. So, in so far the 2 topics which I have chosen, Supreme Court in 2 dimensions: accessibility, uniformity, and accessibility. Uniformity was recommended by the legislative members that Supreme Court should sit in division benches, that is 5. If you go to Article 145 of the Constitution, Rule subclass 3 says that a division bench of the Supreme Court should be only 5. That is the minimum number of the 5. Supreme Court rules also says like that. So, in so far as uniformity is concerned, the present functioning of the Supreme Court does not fulfill the intention of the framers of the Constitution. And in so far as accessibility is concerned, if Supreme Court bench is established elsewhere, this accessibility aspect would be gained from. So these are the two aspects which I have dealt. And next slide, Anand. So this is the topic which is close to my heart: judicial impact assessment. Therefore, Constitution provides for the uniformity of the Supreme Court, which should be benches of 5. That should be the Constitution of the Supreme Court. And second thing, the B.N. Rao was advised by Philip Frankfurter that Supreme Court, being the court of last resort, should sit in banc, that is the full court. And in so far as accessibility is concerned, I have taken to the slide which says that Article 130 contemplates that bench should be established. So these are the aspects which is contemplated in the Constitution. So coming to the judicial impact assessment, this term was used by Supreme Court in Salem Advocates Bar Association, where the provisions of the CPC was challenged, and saying that the amendments are made to CPC were not found practical to be implemented. Therefore, the validity of that act was amendment acts were challenged by the Supreme Court by the association from the state of Tamil Nadu, namely district Salem district. So when the Supreme Court came to a decision saying that the act does not suffer from any legal infirmity, therefore we are dismissing the petition. But therefore the association sought the permission of the Supreme Court to withdraw the petition. The Supreme Court said, no, this is the petition where we challenge the constitutional validity of the act. Therefore, there is no list between the private parties. The question of national importance. Therefore, we are not striking down the act. Rather, we would appoint amicus to suggest the modalities to implement the act, amendment act. That is how Leonard Senior Councils, namely C.S. Vaidyanathan and our Central Minister, Mr. Arun Jaitley, and Mr. Parasaran sir were appointed as amicus to discuss about the modalities and submit a report. They submitted a report, and that is how the Amendment Act came into stay. And today, judicial impact, why I am saying is that to explain the concept of judicial impact assessment, how it came into surface. That means that before amending an act, the legislature should have a judicial impact assessment. What would be before enacting a statute, an amendment act, the parliament should visualize how much court would require, what kind of men and machinery is required to man this course. This is known as judicial impact assessment. See, to have uniformity and accessibility, if in so far as uniformity is concerned, the framers of the Constitution recommended that full court should be the option, and bench of 5 judges. That 2 sessions were being ruled out by the present Supreme Court, which is sitting on division. And in so far as accessibility is concerned, for the past 70 years, 7 decades, there is no chance of Supreme Court benches being established, despite several demands from the various quarters of this. Even in Parliament also it was raised by several MPs, and but still it is not materialized. Therefore, what is the way forward? So, judicial impact, that is National Court of Appeal. See, National Court of Appeal is a term which was invented by the Supreme Court through Justice Bhagavati, who is a very proactive judge. Late 70s was the golden period of Supreme Court, where several writ petitions have been entered by Justice Bhagavati and Krishna Iyer and Chinnappa Reddy, where the concept of PAL came into stay. And today, migrant laborers met the Supreme Court after much reluctance. So you should notice and sort that there is a practical issue which I don't want to go into front of. There, bigger Buti Mochwa case where the laborers were exploited by the factory owners. one of the laborers wrote a letter to the Supreme Court saying that this is the condition of the laborers. They have not been paid with the wages. Therefore, please rescue us. The Supreme Court, for the first time in the history of the country, issued a mandamus, appointed an advocate commissioner to go into the field and submit a report with regard to the laborers, condition of the laborers. And there's Bhagavati in the year 1986. The judgment is reported in 1986 Supreme Court, 786. The cost is a bigger legal support service versus Chief Justice of India. The facts of that case is that two industrialists of the Bihar who are arrested and remanded for judicial custody before the judicial custody. They filed a bail application in the morning in the magistrate court of Bihar. Bail dismissed. Again in the afternoon, they filed a appeal before the district court. There also they turned down the plea. Again, in Patna High Court has also turned down the plea. The midnight, the matter was taken up by the Supreme Court, and they released the two industrialists. Those industrialists were very well-off and affluent people. Therefore, the Bihar Legal Support Society, citing this case as a precedent, has filed a writ petition saying that, see, this was the treatment, royal treatment to the industrialist of the Bihar, whether it is available whether it would be available to the common man, that's the poor and have-nots. So the bench comprising of Justice Bhagavati and Krishna says that Supreme Court, being the court of last resort, is doing justice to all the citizens of this country. Therefore, they have discussed in length what I what I will put in the slide, saying that how the Supreme Court should function, why it has mismanaged, how it is failed its constitutional duty to function as a court of last resort. See, this is how His Lordship discusses all the aspects, pros and cons of the Supreme Court. And finally gave an opinion saying that there should be a court of appeal where the list between the parties should be decided by the respective court. They should not come to Supreme Court. And His Lordship says that, quoting very beautifully, says that Supreme Court is final because we are right. We are right because we are not final. So all the judgments rendered by the Supreme Court is not final. That is why one of the judges of Supreme Court saying that we should always reconcile. So since there is no appeal after Supreme Court, it does not mean that all the judgments of Supreme Court is right. So one of the judge of Supreme Court, American Supreme Court judge says that we should always reconcile. And I recommended to establish National Court of Appeal. That is how the concept of National Court of Appeal has come into surface. That to emanated by the Supreme Court, that to constitutional bench. So this was the first instance where the National Court of Appeal concept came into existence. So what is the way forward and how to get on with accessibility, uniformity and accessibility? In one aspect, the framers of the Constitution say that Supreme Court should sit in full court and benches of 5. In the other aspect, 130 says that Supreme Court should have accessible to the all parts of the country. Therefore, there should be a bench. So these two accessibility and uniformity will have to be achieved. That is the framers. That is the interest of the framers of the Constitution. So to achieve these two goals, what I would suggest, and in fact, I would distribute a writ petition. It was heard by Justice Sadasivam in the year 2014. Issued a mandamus to the central government. Central government said rejected the claim saying that National Court of Appeal cannot be established because Article 130 says that Chief Justice has got the powers. There are already reports, full court has rejected the claim. Therefore, we can't establish Supreme Court bench. Therefore, issued a reply. I again challenge that reply saying that I am not seeking a Supreme Court bench. I am conscious of the fact that a bench cannot be established by issuing a mandamus. Rather, I am seeking a National Court of Appeal. How to establish a National Court of Appeal? The way I found in the Constitution is there should be insertion by like Article 124 capital A of the Constitution to give a constitutional status to the National Court of Appeal. Because such a court, if established, would try all the appeals from the respective high courts. For example, National Court of Appeal is established in Madras. Madras Court of Appeal will have jurisdiction over the 5 state high courts: Madras, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Telangana. So all the appeals emanating from those high courts would be entertained by the National Court of Appeal, which is to be established at Madras. See, National Court of Appeal again would decide only the list between the question of list between the two individuals. For example, rent control, for example, suit for partition, declaration. Whereas list is confined only to the individuals. Why Supreme Court should interfere in those matters? So all the proceedings instituted under the Code of Civil Procedure, where is the list between these two parties? And for example, private complaint is Section 200 CR, the Negotiable Instrument Act. See, complainant accused. Why it should go to Supreme Court? That should be one filter. See, that is how Federal Court of India was established by the British, to filter all the appeals emanating from the Indian High Courts. So 1937, Federal Court of India was established. I have shown the slide. I will invite our respected members' memory to second slide, where I said the reasons for establishment of Federal Court of India, which is enumerated the 5 reasons, which those 5 reasons still exist. Because Supreme Court has superseded Federal Court of India, one form of appeal has been taken away. Therefore, my endeavor is that to restore that Federal Court. See, all common law countries are following the English legal system. In the US also, there is a Supreme Court at capital only to decide the question of national importance, and they sit en banc. So this is the National Court of Appeal or intermediary court. 124 capital A, National Court of Appeal can be established. And 145 deals with the rules with regard to the powers of Supreme Court. And where does the Parliament will have power to establish such a court? The answer is Article 247. Article 247 contemplates, confers power on the Parliament to establish additional courts to administer the law. Under 248 is a residuary provision on the Constitution, where it gives residuary power to the Constitution to enact any law to administer the enactments enacted by Parliament. The 7th schedule, if you find 7797, that pertains to the powers of Supreme Court and the persons could practice in Supreme Court. So these are the provisions which empowers the Parliament to establish the courts of appeal. Therefore, there is a way. Where there is a will, there is a way. So, what would be the functions of the National Court of Appeal? See, the National Court of Appeal would observe all the appellate jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, except the SLPs, where the question of national importance and the question of constitutionality is being involved. So, all the SLPs except these matters will stay in Supreme Court, and Supreme Court will still decide all the validity of the laws on question of national importance. So, this is how National Court of Appeal is being formulated, and this is the idea, this is the way forward to bring back the uniformity of the Supreme Court, where if National Court of Appeal is established, Supreme Court would sit in en banc, that is the full court, would decide all the appeals from the National Court of Appeal, which where involves question of law alone. There is no question of further appeal from National Court of Appeal, where the litigation is between the parties. Supreme Court will still have a jurisdiction try from appeal from the National Court of Appeal, provided the National Court of Appeal gives certificate saying this is a fit case to decide the question of law by the Supreme Court. Then only the matter will go to Supreme Court. Otherwise, the list between the parties from Madras, where partition will attain finality in National Court of Appeal itself. So this is how the roadmap to establish National Court of Appeal. Here I have quoted the President and the reports advocating National Court of Appeal. As I said, already a judgment of the Supreme Court where it said that that Bihar Legal Support Service Authority, which says that National Court of Appeal has to be established. That is Bhagavati. I quoted that judgment. And there are reports of the Law Commission. 14th Law Commission report is the first report. That was the report which I want to show on the slide, but from memory I'm saying. 14th Law Commission report was authored by distinguished members of the legal fraternity. So M.C. Settlewater, the chairman, who is the first attorney general of this country. M.C. Chawla, the greatest distinguished judge of the Bombay, first Indian to be appointed judge of the Bombay High Court. And Mr. Palkiwala, the great lawyer, who was instrumental in forming the doctrine called as basic section Kesavananda Bharati. He is one of the formidable lawyer of this country. And they have suggested a report called Judicial Reforms, 14th Law Commission report. It says that the Supreme Court, being the court of last resort, should not entertain all the SLPs by default. They should entertain SLPs only where the question of national importance and the constitutional interpretation is emanated from the SLP. See, if you see the question of law of any SLP, there is a book called Goyal Goyal. Yes, tabulated all the judgments of the Supreme Court for the past 5 decades, where where the constitutional bench to decide the cases are very minimal in the last 3 decades. Late 70s up to 80s, there are many judgments of 5 judges, and later after part of the 80s, Supreme Court standard has come down heavily, and he has tabulated all the judgments of the Supreme Court past 6 decades. And 14th Law Commission report suggested that Supreme Court should not entertain all the SLPs unless it raises question of law and constitutional interpretation. Then come to 95th report. 95th report says that the Supreme Court should have 2 divisions. In fact, they have not advocated for a bench of the Supreme Court. They said that Supreme Court should have two divisions, namely constitutional division and the appellate legal division. Constitutional division will be comprising of 5 judges who decide all questions of constitutional importance. And the legal divisions will try all the appeals where there is between the parties. So this was the suggestion given by the 95th report. Then came 125th report. 125th report, K.K. Matthew suggested that Federal Court of India, he has termed the National Court of Appeal as Federal Court of India. He says that there should be a Federal Court of India and it should have benches like in all parts of the country, namely Madras, Bombay, and Kolkata. And he says the people traveling from South India find it very difficult to approach the Supreme Court. And moreover, the Supreme Court is not meant for the interpretation of it's meant only for the interpretation of national question importance. Therefore, Supreme Court should be bifurcated. And he has advocated for this course of appeal. But the nomenclature is often is Federal Court of India, which was existing before Constitution. And then came 220th report of the Law Commission, where again the chairman of the Law Commission was a judge of the Supreme Court. He has advocated for cassation benches, that is the French term, which says that benches of the Supreme Court would be constituted in other parts of the country, and the Supreme Court Delhi would decide only the question of national importance of the constitutional practice, that there is in conformity with the suggestions of the committee constituted by the Legislative Assembly to go into the powers of Supreme Court. And again, there is an article by VD Center for Litigation Policy that was conducted in 2015. They say that they also advocated the concept of National Court of Appeal to restore the stature of the Supreme Court. And recently, the Vice President of India at a function at Chennai University, Madras University, has advocated that courts of appeal should be established. And he said that all the matters should be disposed of in time. And the Supreme Court should not entertain all the appeals from various high courts where the question of law does not arise. And then Mr. K.K. Venugopal, who is the President Attorney General, was appointed as amicus in my matter. And we argued the matter from January to June 2016 before the bench of 3 judges, Justice Thakur, Lalit, and Bolbal. 6 months we argued the matter, and he has affirmed 11 questions to be decided for the purpose of coming out with a concrete conclusion. The bench directed the matter to post before the constitutional bench because the issue raised the question of national importance. That is how the matter was, that is reported in 2016, summary 6686. That also I reported. And Mr. T.R. Andiyarjuna, unfortunately, we are unfortunate that he is no more with us. I pay my respect to his soul, and he voluntarily intervened. And the matter was argued by us before first bench on 20th April 2016. My friend KKV sir was were waiting for the court for arguing the matter. T.R. Andiarjuna sir entered in the courtroom and said that, gentlemen, I am supporting your case. And he also said to K.K. Visar saying that he would like to put forth the submissions. And he is advocate of the distinction. He was advocate general of Maharashtra and additional source central of India. And he assisted H.M. Sirvai for 65 days in that Kesavananda Bharati case. And he written a book, a beautiful book called Untold Story of Parliament and the Supreme Court. It's a packed book. It's a very good book. And I would recommend to all to read the book that you decipher what had happened on 65 days on that Kesavananda Bharati case. And he stood up and argued before the bench saying that courts of appeal should be established. Way back in the 1994 itself, he has advocated this concept, and he was called to US Supreme Court to visit how the court functions. So then onwards, he has been advocating for this courts of appeal to be established. And his article also reported in SEC, and that is also quoted in my judgment, which I quoted just now. And these are the precedent and the reports advocating National Court of Appeal. So if you see this slide, this is a structure, how the court would be functioning after the establishment of the National Court of Appeal. If you see in the left side, that is before independence, I was pointing out in the first slide how the courts were functioning. High Court, thereafter until 1937 Privy Council, after 1937 to 1950 Federal Court of India, which was entertaining all the appeals from the High Courts of the Indian Dominion of the British Empire. And if Federal Court gives leave, then matter will go to Privy Council. This was the first structure before independence. So after National Court of Appeal is established, how the court would function? If you see the forum, the High Court, thereafter the appeal, that is the National Court of Appeal, is similar to that of the Federal Court of India, which was in work before independence. So after the Constitution came into force, we virtually lost one forum. That is one intermediate courts. Now the Supreme Court assumed two forums, that is Federal Court and Privy Council. The Federal Court and Privy Council are subsumed into Supreme Court. Now my endeavor is that it has to be bifurcated from the Supreme Court. The forums which were existing before independence, namely Federal Court and Privy Council. Federal Court was a forum where all the appeals between the parties was being tried by the Federal Court. And appeals there against the Privy Council was entertained on leave from the Federal Court. So these two forums have been subsumed to the Federal Court, to the Supreme Court. Now High Court and Supreme Court is the present stature. Now after National Court of Appeal is established, all the appeals between the parties will be decided by the National Court of Appeal. And further SLP, further appeal, civil, that will become the civil SLP jurisdiction will be taken away. SLP jurisdiction will be taken away by the Supreme Court. And all the matters from the National Court of Appeal where the question of law is raised, that will go to Supreme Court, provided National Court of Appeal gives leave to the litigant to file appeal by the Supreme Court. So if that is established, if the respected members recall the topic, Supreme Court of India, uniformity and accessibility, that two term would become a reality by establishing National Court of Appeal. If a Courts of Appeal is established, then all the appellate work would be observed by the Courts of Appeal. Then the Supreme Court sit in 5 judges, full bench. Question of law only would be entertained. So that would be in tandem with the recommendation of the committee constituted for the Supreme Court, that saying that it should sit in five judges and by in tune with Article 145 of the Constitution and the full court. That the in uniformity aspect is concerned, Court of Appeal would fulfill this aspect. So far as accessibility is concerned, if National Court of Appeal has benches at Bombay, Madras and Calcutta, all the litigants can approach the respective Court of Appeal in the respective region and they can get redressal. So Supreme Court finally would decide only question of national importance on constitutional validity of laws, not for the statutes. So this is how I conclude. I have did justice to the topic which I have chosen Supreme Court of India, accessibility and uniformity. If this suggestion is implemented in letter and spirit, then the topic which I chosen would be would become a reality, and access to justice would become a reality, and that is how I have chosen this topic. And I understand I have shared only my thoughts to restructure the glory of the Supreme Court, connecting to the intention of the framers of the Constitution. And I grateful to the organizers for giving this opportunity to share my thoughts to this aspect. And I am open to the questions. And before that, many of my friends have joined belatedly to the webinar. And I request all the members to subscribe this AP Law Chambers, and this video will be uploaded, and they will have the benefit of listening my talk with regard to the Supreme Court, that admissibility and uniformity and accessibility, judicial impact assessment. And hereby I conclude my talk, and I leave it to the floor to Mr. Anand to open for the questions. Thank you one and all. And I see Mr. A.R. Sundarasan sir, the president of the Bar Association, Madras Bar Association, has joined. The Vice Chancellor of the Law, Dr. Ambedkar Law University, and many other senior lawyers have joined in this webinar. I am grateful to one and all for having listened patiently. And I leave the floor to Mr. Anand, the organizers, to come forward with questions, and I am ready to answer all the queries.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for the wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
It was really refreshing, and you have shared your opinions, and you have also stated the precedents and the points which have been already on talks for several decades now. And we are very much grateful to you for coming on board to APLC's webinar, sir. And as you mentioned, we also welcome the Dr. Ambedkar Law College Vice Chancellor and the Madras Bar Association's dignitaries who have come here and attending our webinars. We are really honored to have all the chief guests here and all the participants as well who have been continuously supporting us throughout our endeavors. And with regard to the presentation, it was crisp, and it was really thoroughly knowledge sharing session, sir. I once again thank you for this wonderful presentation. Now, with your permission, shall we move to the next segment, sir, called APLC's APLC?
Yes. With pleasure.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So the first question we have, and at the same time, I also request all the participants to leave the questions in the chat box. This APLC's APLC will act as an icebreaker. Till that time, you can type your questions, so that once the APLC segment is over, we will move to the next set of questions from the participants. Yeah. Sir, coming back to the question,
Yes.
sir, I think video conferencing has eliminated the problem of accessibility. A client, with the help of his counsel, sitting at the convenience of his house, can access the apex court in India and get justice. So, don't you think this one is a major step forward, talking about the accessibility point of view? Not only a person sitting in the southernmost tip of India, but also the people who are in the northeastern parts, where the normal communication or proper this thing has not been very effective for the last few years. And a person sitting in Kashmir can also access from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, and from northeast to the parts of Gujarat. Everyone can access. So don't you think this video conferencing facility has eliminated the concept of accessibility, sir?
See, fortunately, this question has been answered by Justice Chandrachud, who is the chairman of the E-Committee of the Supreme Court, saying that the hearing through video conferencing is not giving complete go-by to the regular hearings of court. See, I would suggest video conferencing can be a tool to the physical court hearing. Physical court hearing cannot dispense with at all to have an effective hearing. In my limited experience, I would suggest video conference facility can be utilized only for the purpose of admission of SLPs. Insofar as final hearing is concerned, it should be by the physical court alone. Then only there should be some effective hearing. Insofar as admission, I certainly agree that video conferencing would facilitate all litigants to the approach the Supreme Court. And in fact, in that matter, Salman Khurshid, the senior advocate, has suggested this idea when we were arguing the matter of the Supreme Court. He was also one of the amicus. But Supreme Court turned down this idea and at that point of time. Now video conferencing has come into vogue only because of the forcing circumstances. So this video conferencing cannot perpetuate for the reason. If you see Jammu and Kashmir, there is no internet. Many of our parts of the country, all lawyers are lacking. Today, I am sitting at my home at Pondicherry and speaking to you at Delhi. How many lawyers would have this facility? First, the government will have to ensure that see in this country, in the independent country, there is no electricity for many of the parts of the nook and corner of the country. So unless otherwise there is a robust system which gives the internet facility, even now Jammu and Kashmir, the 4G internet, there is an issue. And like that, and the legal fraternity will have to be enlightened with regard to the procedures. Unless that is being done, that I don't think that video conferencing can come into existence. And moreover, all the stakeholders will have to be taken into consideration. All the stakeholders will have to, the institution will have to invite all the stakeholders to render their opinion before implementing in entirety. For the time being, it is there because that is the COVID situation. Nobody can access the physical hearing is happening. To have a permanency of this video conferencing after consultation only, this could be implemented. Provided there should be a robust facility to the lawyers, and there should be enlightened with regard to procedures. Then this video conferencing can be implemented only for the admission of SLP.
Thank you very much, sir. Moving on to the next question. We actually planned for one question and we have got a very wonderful question from the participant as well. I would like to club both the questions together, sir. We had prepared a question called how to decide the locations of the National Court of Appeals. What wisdom has to be used before finalizing the places? Here, our participant, Mr. Muthukrishnan, yes, has asked, why again fixing the place of National Court of Appeal at Delhi? Would it be convenient to poor litigants to access justice in the event of interference required by the NCA? So he would like to know why again setting up NCA at Delhi, because already since we have the Honorable Supreme Court. Yes, sir. Yeah.
That is what I was. I see National Court of Appeal should have benches at all the courts. In fact, one of the political party in 2019 parliamentary elections said that National Supreme Court will be reconstructed, as I have suggested. That party has said in the election manifesto that the National Court of Appeal would be in 6 places: Madras, Bombay, Calcutta, and eastern parts. There are 7 states in the eastern parts which states does not have access to even for the outside the capital. And Delhi would be the default place to have a bench for the north. See, it is up to the parliamentarians to sit with the regard to the location. Insofar as the location, deciding the wisdom of deciding the location is concerned, the 220 in the report of the Law Commission suggested that insofar as South is concerned, Krishnagiri is the right place for the center point of South India. So, insofar as Bombay region is concerned, Bombay, and West Bengal is Calcutta region is Calcutta. And Delhi is the default place. Therefore, Delhi should be the place. And Bihar and Uttar Pradesh are even very not close to Delhi. Therefore, it is up to the wisdom of parliamentarians to decide the location of the benches of the National Court of Appeal.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the clarification. Because this novel idea, it should not stuck at a place where which location has to be the place for deciding the National Court of Appeal. So, thank you, sir. Moving on to the next question. Sir, what do you think the reason for the 3 pillars of our democracy and the 4th pillar, media, not supporting for this cause of National Court of Appeal, sir?
On what basis the question has been raised? Where do you find that media is not supporting? Media does not have any role to play at all. It is up to the parliamentarians to decide. to constitute a court of appeal. Media can only report what is happening in the court. Where is the question of supporting media? Media does not play any role in so far as court is concerned. They can only convey the news which is happening inside the courts. Media may write many things. See, for example, exit poll is being released by the many media, but in practical it is happening something different. Therefore, I don't think that what is the basis for this. I do not understand the basis of the question. Where is the question of supporting the media? Parliamentarians alone will have to decide this.
Yes, sir. But with regard to the precedents, people are not given the light of the day by the media, by the national media or the regional media. With regard to the matters where National Court of Appeal has been insisted or discussed in the Honorable Supreme Court.
Yeah, I do agree because the persons not able to because it could not have media has got a major role to play with regard to the happenings in the courts. See, they should convey the matter so that the people can understand. If you say National Court of Appeal to many people, they will laugh at us. What is meant by National Court? If you say Supreme Court bench, therefore many a times when I was arguing this matter in Delhi for the 2016, I have given several interviews. Media always support. That does not have any role to play at all in so far as constitution of the Court of Appeal is concerned. I would respectfully say that it is only the parliamentary wisdom and representative of the people will have to decide. And there is no question of supporting media. Media may say this and that. It does not have any impact in so far as this aspect is concerned.
Yes, sir. And do you think the three pillars of the democracy are giving are going in the right direction in supporting for this cause, sir?
So, to my best of knowledge, three MPs from 3 or 4 MPs I could name, but they have also raised this question in the parliament as a private member bill. Even a member from Calcutta has also moved a bill for this Supreme Court bench. And on and off of late, many MPs from Madras. And if you Google the Supreme Court bench, you will find any number of bills being introduced by the private members, which for reasons of lack of patronage from members of the parliament used to lapse. Because one thing is that if a bill is introduced in Lok Sabha, that will lapse after the expiry of the term of the Lok Sabha, 5 years. Within 5 years, it has to be passed, otherwise it will lapse. If it is introduced as the Rajya Sabha being the permanent body, the bill will not lapse. But the bill will always be in work. Therefore, it is up to the wisdom of the three pillars is that judiciary has turned down this aspect. There is no, because judiciary on several occasions has turned down this, saying that this cannot be established. And this was advocated by the then Attorney General because Supreme Court saying that judiciary has turned down. Then we said that there is an administrative side. Administrative decision can't bind the judicial side. Even the decision of the administrative side by the Supreme Court can be challenged before the Delhi High Court. A full court resolution passed by the Supreme Court can be challenged in the Delhi High Court. Therefore, administrative results cannot poke a nose in judicial decision. That is what the Bench Justice was saying, that when there was severe opposition from the bar, that courts of appeal would reach to the Supreme Court. This is not viable, this and that. Then this is Thakur said that we would only suggest what could be the possible measures to restrict the higher echelons of the judiciary. That is the first word in the judgment. You could have seen that. So this is how judiciary being custodian of the Constitution, where the end number of judgments saying that access to justice is a fundamental right. If that fundamental right of the citizens will have to be achieved, then the judiciary will have to step in immediately. The 70 long years, this bench was not established, and people could not approach the Supreme Court. Therefore, all the pillars of the democracy, namely the executive does not have any active role unless otherwise the legislature administers the executive. Therefore, virtually I would say only two pillars, that is judiciary and the parliament. Parliamentarians, there is no collective wisdom at all. seldom any of the member would raise the bill and it will get lapsed due to this, I said this. And judiciary also there is no unanimity. Therefore, I would say that all the 12 have failed in that aspect, uniformity and this way.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving the clarity. Now, moving on to the next question. Sir, apart from uniformity and accessibility, don't you think speedy trial is also one of the key ingredients of delivering justice? And do you think setting up of the National Court of Appeal will help in disposing of the cases in speedy way, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I would like to point out several instances for this purpose. See, before this High Court, there was, if you see the jurisdiction of the High Court, several matters were being filed by the tried with the High Court. So therefore, Central Administrative Committee was formed saying that several matters are not getting disposed of at the early stage. Therefore, take jurisdiction of the High Court and establish CAT. And moreover, the City Civil Court were trying all the suits from filed by the banks. And parliamentary committee formed and said that all the civil courts have been taken into DRT. Then come to national court, then come to company law. Company law matters are pending. Let's say stay in the economy. Therefore, the company law tribunal. See, this is how all the wings of the judiciary has been taken away, and these forums have been established for speedy recovery. To some extent, I do agree that all these forums are doing excellent service. Except to say that those tribunals should not become an heaven for the bureaucrats. They should be manned only by the persons who have a judicial training. So that is why, if you see the Federal Court of India recommendation, it was said that any person who is eminent person can become judge of the Supreme Court and Federal Court. To become the Chief Justice, you should have 15 years of practice. Out of 15 years, you should have been a 5 years judge of the Constitutional Court. The reason is that nobody who does not have any impact on judicial side should come to Chief Justice, which is the highest office of the country, who is having the administrative responsibility also. Therefore, it was consciously said that this forum should have been trained, should be manned by the members who have a sound knowledge on judicial aspect. So, National Court of Appeal would definitely furtherance and process of speedy justice. And there are several judgments of the Supreme Court. Usarana Cartoon, the Supreme Court said speedy justice is a fundamental right. And one of the judgment which I read recently is that transfer petitions were filed before the Supreme Court to transfer certain civil appeal and civil cases and criminal cases pending in Jammu and Kashmir High Court before the Supreme Court. It was raised by the Attorney General saying that the CPC and CRPC does not apply to Jammu and Kashmir. I am saying before 2070, I am saying. Now it has become the union, part of union. Saying that CPC and CRPC does not apply to the Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir has a separate constitution. Supreme Court, they come into the rescue of the litigants saying that 145 and 142 of the constitution gives enormous power to the Supreme Court. Even though Jammu and Kashmir has a separate constitution at this point of time, 2016, and say, and withdraw the matter and transfer to the cases to the outside Jammu and Kashmir. So even though there is a lacuna in statute, Supreme Court invoked the constitution. So that is the vibrant judicial activity of Supreme Court. So that is a National Court of Appeal established that would, to be understanding and a belief that it would render speedy justice to the litigants.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Because speedy justice is also one of the integral ingredients which are enshrined in our Indian Constitution. And I am sure, based on your presentation, setting up a National Court of Appeal would definitely help in disposing of the cases in a much quicker manner. Thank you, sir. Now, moving on to the question asked by one of our participants, Mr. Prakash Kumar, Advocate Prakash Kumar, who is practicing in the Jharkhand High Court in Ranchi. He wants to know, he is our regular participant, he has asked this question. Sir, in this COVID scenario, legal profession is getting much hampered. Video conferencing is also having its own drawbacks. How can a budding lawyer flourish in this situation? What is your suggestion, sir?
That is the answer already. That is video conference. That Supreme Court already taken some amount of cognizance of this issue. I understand the Bar Council of India has also filed a complaint to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court issued notice to the Bar Council to help the lawyers. And I do understand the entire legal fraternity is suffering, and there are many human crimes barred as a advocate does not have any income. Therefore, it is up to the state bar councils to distribute some money. I would like to remember one great lawyer, C.P. Ramasamy earlier. He was advocate general of Madras. But today, the welfare fund is being in existence by the Bar Council of India and the Bar Council of Tamil Nadu. The idea for the welfare fund was suggested by C.P. Ramasamy earlier, way back in 1928. Where he said that he would have visualized this situation, I understand. He has given a corpus of 35,000 1920s. And Mr. M.K. Nambiar, a father of K.K. Visar, is junior of C.P. Ramasamy. He has endowed 35,000 for the betterment of those claimants. So he was the Divan of Travancore, Cochin, he was Advocate General. So that is how some senior lawyers who are flourishing in the profession should come forward to help the junior lawyers, budding lawyers who are suffering from all these temporary difficulties. In fact, all lawyers are not having any backup in this profession. Therefore, unless otherwise, as a community as a whole, take a decision and have a concerted efforts, this can be, to some extent, can be utilized by the lawyers in the Bar Council and the government as such.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We hope this. We hope and pray that the situation passes very soon. Because if this continues, there will be a lot of other related implications which will have adverse effect on the profession as a whole. Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next question. It is
Before concluding, please give me 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely, sir. We have one question from our participant. Ms. Harini has asked, what are the advantages of National Court of Appeal instead of setting up of circuit benches of Honorable Supreme Court?
Yeah, that is what this is a good question which I expected. See, if even Supreme Court, again the accessibility aspect would be fulfilled. There's no doubt at all. Accessibility aspect would be fulfilled if circuit benches are established. That is what I showed in the slide with regard to the question of Justice Roy Kapoor. There he said the circuit bench would be established. That in the second slide I understand. Second or third slide it was took place on 20th May 1949, where Ambedkar said that the circuit bench can be established. And in so far accessibility aspect is concerned, that would fulfill. But if regard uniformity, again there would be a question. The Supreme Court sitting at Delhi itself is creating 15 judges, 15 question benches, 15 different views, which I said before with regard to the Uma Devi, their service jurisprudence, and with regard to review petition, there are several views where whether review can be filed after the dismissal of SLP, whether no issues of notes itself suffice that the judgment of High Court has met with the decision of Supreme Court. Whether online order of Supreme Court will enter the party to file a review in the High Court against the judgment of the High Court. So these are the questions which has arose on and off before the various review benches. Recently in Punya Uma, the judgment of Supreme Court said that even after the dismissal of the SLP, the review can be filed. So, even though the circuit bench may fulfill the aspect of accessibility, in so much uniformity of the Supreme Court is concerned, which was advocated by the members of the Legislative Assembly, where it should sit in 5 and full court, that may not be possible. Therefore, in my respectful opinion, the circuit bench may not fulfill the aspect of uniformity.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Now, moving on to the next question. It is asked by Advocate Saravanan. Should the practice of issuing certificate of appeal be renewed?
Yes, that is what I said. See, if a aggrieved party against the judgment of the High Court is concerned can file an appeal before the National Court of Appeal. If National Court of Appeal feels that this matter should be attended the Supreme Court, where question of law is involved, then the leave has to be granted. Only after obtaining leave, only the matter will go to Supreme Court. So, the concept of SLP will be taken away. Now, there is no more SLP in Supreme Court. If a leave is granted, then directly civil appeal. The procedure now, which is in practice, is that any judgment of Supreme Court is being done in the any judgment of High Court is being challenged in the Supreme Court, they have SLP. First, Supreme Court issues notices in SLP. Then counter is being filed, leave is granted, then converted into civil appeal. This is the current practice. After National Court of Appeal is established, there is no concept of SLP. Only civil, that is a civil appeal. So SLP jurisdiction will be observed by the National Court of Appeal. If appeal is granted, it will number as civil appeal. So on civil appeal, the arguments would be conducted by the Supreme Court. So this is the answer for the question.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. And with this, we wrap this session. I thank you wholeheartedly for giving this presentation, sir. One last question we have before we close this session. You are staying on Union Territory and you are traveling to one Union Territory in New Delhi, which is National Capital Territory, and to the Honorable Supreme Court. So what is the one piece of advice you will give to the young advocates, and kindly share your secret of success, sir, for the participants' benefit?
So you are under my success cannot be. I would only say that hard work alone will have success. I would only say that junior lawyers, my sincere suggestion, I would not say advice, my suggestion is that every lawyer who was enrolled will have to practice in trial courts. In trial courts only we can learn the nuances of the provisions of procedural law. This is M.C. Chawla, a very distinguished judge. Being belonged to the Muslim community, was invited by Muhammad Ali Jinnah to become Chief Justice of the Pakistan High Court, Supreme Court. He declared, saying that I can do justice as a Chief Justice of the High Court. He was a great judge and he declined the post of the Supreme Court judge. The reason why I am saying is that now of late I am seeing persons directly elected in Supreme Court. That in my opinion is not admissible. Every lawyer was enrolled in the bar council. Even MBBS, if you see, 5 years of course, 1 year is house surgeon. Compulsory, there should be house surgeon. So that kind of practice here, there is no stay at all in so far as legal profession is concerned. So by 22, he is completing law, by 21 or 22. But thereafter 3 years he can practice in civil. Thereafter he can specialize. So that is the one suggestion I would give. To become a successful lawyer, everybody should masterize in English. We can say proudly that I am a Tamilian. Tamil should be the language of the court. That we can speak in neighboring friends and we excel in the profession. Fortunately and unfortunately, we are following the British system, where all the legal terms and languages are in English. Therefore, we should master the English language. The second suggestion I would say. And moreover, and every lawyer should be a junior to a senior. Then only he can learn how to have the court craft. So these are my suggestions to the lawyers. Of course, it's a very, very difficult part where at the age of 21, if one of our friends would have completed engineering, they would be drawing a handsome salary like 60,000 software. But we cannot earn such money. But this profession is a waiting profession. And this Anand Venkatesh was saying a few days before, I saw in that video in Vernacular, it said, I think I can share that. முதல்ல கேஸே வராது, கேஸ் வரும், பணம் வராது. அப்புறம் பணமும் வரும், கேஸும் வரும். அப்புறம் கேஸே பணமும் வரும், கேஸும் வரும். அப்புறம் பணம் மட்டும்தான் வந்துட்டு இருக்கும். Therefore, there is a waiting profession. Therefore, one should wait, and it's a step-by-step profession. There is no shortcut and all. Even Mr. Arvind Datar also was sharing his thoughts on 40 years of his experience in the bar. And I interacted with him in the webinar. And he shared his experience because he was a junior to N. Natarajan. He's a civil senior at Madras. He was for 1 year, went to criminal side work, and thereafter gone to Ramamani, who was in tax. He was applying income tax appellate tribunal for 3 years. That is how he picked up practice. And gradually he migrated to tax matter, and then he has become the topmost lawyer of the country. And respected senior K.K. Venugopal, he started his practice in many of the public functions as a revealed secret. He has started his practice in that license collector office, where they will get the licenses, and thereafter he started practicing in High Court for 25 years. After 25 years only, he come to Supreme Court. So that is how successful. If you take the lawyer's biography, you read Sutish Pai book, Legends in Law. Yes, beautifully encapsulates the sufferings undergone by the lawyers. As about those days, there is no facility of internet, there is no facility of mobile phone, there is no WhatsApp, but still they have survived. When MK Nambiar came into profession, and there is no case law and constitution. He was laying his hands for all the profession only based on the cases in England. In fact, in A.K. Gopalan and several cases, his views were been taken by the Supreme Court, saying that Parliament cannot amend the fundamental rights. After 25 years, it was upheld in Supreme by Kesavan Bharati. So that is how success and failure is up and down. Therefore, we have to listen to all these difficulties. And after 50 years only, I could able to establish to some extent. So success would not come at the outset. It is after 40 years only, in my limited experience, if it is I am saying success only for presidential lawyers. This caveat I would like to put. The lawyers who is having a lineal legacy of advocates in their family does not have any worry at all. This suggestion, me being first level lawyer, I can only share my thoughts. How I struggled. I was traveling to Delhi but during those periods only I could able to visualize the difficulty of the issues how to approach the Delhi. Climatical condition also, Delhi is not fit for to be a capital of this country. In the post that winter session, you cannot say Delhi. You are in Delhi. I am saying to others. So these are my suggestions to the budding lawyers. And before concluding, I would like to thank to one of the admin of my group named Digital Renaissance, through which we do all share the thoughts. And Advocate John Raja Singh, who is staying right from the beginning, and he supports me a lot in many aspects. And Executive Committee of the Madras High Court Advocate Association, Mr. Nanmaran, and my good friend Mr. Muthu Krishnan is also there. And many of the known persons I could see. And I thank one and all for having patiently listening my talk. And I have shared all my thoughts and opinion with regard to restriction of the courts and how to restore the glory of the Supreme. Thank you, one and all.
Very beautifully put, sir. Life starts at 40 for first generation advocates.
And Govind Ramana is also there. Govind Raman Sara is also a neighbor to my chamber at Amritsar district. He is also there. I thank him also.
So I also welcome all the advocates with equal warmth. Yeah. I also concur with our special guest, and I also welcome all the dignitaries and advocates here with equal warmth on my personal behalf as well as on my firm's behalf. And with this, we take this opportunity to thank our special speaker and conclude this session. We have other exciting webinars coming up on the next month as well. The schedule will be uploaded in the Facebook. Kindly follow us in our Facebook page and YouTube channel, AP Legal Chambers, for keeping a tab on the latest webinars. With this, we conclude this session. Thank you all. Thank you very much for this sparing this time, and have a great week ahead. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.